There are certain moments in life that feel strangely heavy, even though nothing dramatic is happening. You walk into a crowded mall, or a noisy station, or a packed marketplace, and suddenly something inside you tightens. It isn't fear in the dramatic sense, it isn't danger. It's more like an invisible pressure that rises quietly, the kind that makes you wish you could dissolve into the background, or step outside for just a moment of quiet. Most people around you seem completely fine. They're laughing, talking, walking through the noise as if it's nothing. But for you, something feels off. The air feels thicker, the sound feels sharper, the movement feels too much. You become aware of every step, every sound, every face that passes too close. Why does this happen to me? Why do crowded places feel so overwhelming? Why do I feel drained before anything has even happened? If you've ever wondered that, you're not alone. And what you're feeling isn't strange, it's human. Because the psychology behind people who dislike crowded places is far deeper and far more meaningful than most people realize. It's not simply a preference. It's not just being introverted. It's not about being shy or socially uneasy. Many people who are confident, successful, expressive, and social still struggle in crowded places, and when you look closely, you begin to notice something important. Crowded places don't just overwhelm your senses, they overwhelm your sense of self. Let me take you into the deeper layers of this. There's a reason the mind reacts the way it does, and it begins with something ancient, something built into the nervous system long before modern life existed. For most of human history, being in crowded, unpredictable environments meant you had less control over your surroundings. The mind evolved to track movement, sound, and potential signals of danger. Today, we don't face those same threats, but the wiring remains. When too many things are happening at once, the brain's alert system quietly switches on. It isn't panic, it's vigilance. It's the mind whispering, "Pay attention. There's too much happening." Even if nothing is actually wrong. This is why someone who dislikes crowded places isn't weak or overly sensitive. They're attuned. Their nervous system picks up subtleties. Their perception is sharper. Their internal world is more active. And when the external world becomes loud and chaotic, the internal world reacts. But that's only the surface. There's something deeper, something more personal, something connected to identity, emotions, and the way a person interprets the world. People who dislike crowded places often carry a certain kind of mind, reflective, perceptive, observant, and emotionally self-aware. They tend to think deeply, they notice details others miss, they feel more intensely, and they value meaning over noise. When these kinds of minds are placed into environments full of constant motion, the brain gets louder, not quieter. Every passing face feels like a signal. Every sound feels like another thought to process. The crowd becomes a tangle of impressions, emotions, and expectations. It's not the people that overwhelm, it's the inputs. Your mind wasn't made to absorb that many signals at once. And there's something else. Something many people don't talk about. The psychology of space. Some people feel comfortable when they can control their distance from others. Not because they dislike humanity, but because they need room for their thoughts to breathe. Personal space isn't just physical for them, it's emotional. A crowded environment shrinks that space, it compresses your thoughts, it presses against the invisible boundary that your mind relies on to feel grounded. And when that boundary collapses, even a calm person can feel mentally cornered. It's subtle, it's quiet, but it's real. There's also something deeply symbolic happening. A crowded place represents the world's expectations, the loudness, the pressure, the endless activity. And for someone with a thoughtful, introspective mind, those environments feel like the world demanding attention all at once. It's like being pulled in 100 directions without moving an inch. You start to feel disconnected from yourself, not because the crowd is dangerous, but because it drowns out the inner voice you rely on to navigate life. Some people need silence to hear themselves, and crowded places feel like the opposite of silence. But here's something most people never consider. People who dislike crowds often grew up being hyper-aware of their surroundings. Maybe they learned to read the room early. Maybe they picked up on subtle emotional cues from others. Maybe they lived in environments where being alert was necessary, even if everything looked normal on the outside. When you grow up that way, you develop a habit of scanning, interpreting, predicting. It becomes automatic, and inside a crowd, those abilities multiply until they become exhausting. It's like having too many browser tabs open in the brain. No one else can see it, but you feel every one of them. There's also a philosophical angle, something that goes beyond psychology. Crowded places remind people of how fast the world is moving. Everyone going somewhere, everyone rushing, everyone wrapped in their own lives. It makes you think about your place in all of it. It triggers a quiet kind of existential awareness. Not dramatic, just present. And for someone who feels deeply, that awareness can be overwhelming. Because you begin to wonder, where do I fit into all of this? Why does the noise feel distant yet heavy? Why does this room full of people make me feel more alone than an empty room ever could? That's the paradox. Crowds don't always make you feel connected. Sometimes they make you feel invisible. But invisibility isn't the real issue. It's the absence of meaning. People who dislike crowds often seek environments where interactions feel real, where conversations feel genuine, where emotions feel authentic, where presence feels like more than background noise. In a crowd, everything feels shallow, rushed, unanchored, not because people are shallow, but because the environment forces everyone to move too quickly to be real. And if you're someone who values authenticity, that rushed energy feels wrong. It feels emotionally hollow. It feels like you're surrounded by motion but starved of meaning. There is something else, something that lives beneath the surface of behavior. People who dislike crowded places are often incredibly self-aware. They know how they feel. They notice when their energy dips. They're conscious of their emotional limits. They understand that their mind doesn't thrive in chaos. Self-awareness is a strength, not a flaw. And knowing what environments drain you is one of the most grounded things a person can understand about themselves. But many people misunderstand this feeling. They think it makes them antisocial or strange. They think they need to fix it. They think they should be more like everyone else. But here's the truth. Disliking crowded places doesn't make you flawed. It makes you human in a specific way, a thoughtful way. It means your mind is more tuned into emotional signals than environmental noise. It means you process things deeply. It means you value presence over pressure. It means your internal world is vibrant, sensitive, alive. Some people connect with the world through noise. Others connect through quiet. Both are human. But the world often expects everyone to thrive in the same environment. Loud, fast, chaotic, collective. And when someone doesn't fit into that mold, they think something is wrong with them. But nothing is wrong. It's simply a different psychological rhythm. People who dislike crowded places often live life at a deeper frequency. Slower, more reflective, more observant. They feel the world more than they watch it. They listen more than they speak. They think before they move. They absorb details others pass by. And that kind of mind doesn't do well in overstimulation. Because overstimulation isn't just sensory, it's emotional. But here's something important. Discomfort in crowds isn't only about overwhelm. Sometimes it's about boundaries. When a space is full of strangers, you lose the ability to control your environment. You can't predict what people will do. You can't read every intention. You can't navigate freely. The mind prefers patterns, and crowds disrupt patterns. Too many unpredictable variables, too little personal control, too many unnoticed pressures, and the body reacts, not with panic, but with tension, not with fear, but with unease, not with danger, but with displacement. It's as if your mind whispers, "This isn't my rhythm, this doesn't match my internal pace," and that whisper stays with you. But there's one more layer to this, a quiet psychological truth that many people discover only later in life. People who dislike crowded places often have rich inner lives. Their thoughts have depth, their feelings have nuance, their imagination is active, their reflections are constant, their emotional universe is full of symbolism, meaning, and unspoken understanding. And the outer world sometimes feels too loud for that inner world to breathe. So when you place someone like that into a crowded, noisy environment, the inner world doesn't disappear. It gets suppressed, and that suppression feels like a kind of discomfort that's hard to explain to others. But you feel it. You feel it in your chest, your mind, your breath, your thoughts, and you wonder why. But the truth is simple. Your inner world needs space, and crowds compress that space until it feels harder to access yourself. It's not dramatic, it's not unhealthy, it's not a flaw, it's simply a different way of being. And understanding it, truly understanding it, can change how you see yourself. You're not strange, you're not broken, you're not too sensitive. You're someone whose mind listens more than it shouts, someone who feels the world instead of rushing through it, someone who values emotional authenticity over noise and motion, someone who needs space to stay connected to themselves. And that is a strength, and there's something interesting that happens once you understand this part of yourself. You begin to see that your discomfort in crowded places isn't random, it isn't sudden, it isn't irrational, it's the mind protecting something important. Your focus, your energy, your emotional equilibrium, because every person has a natural capacity for stimulation. Some fill up slowly, some fill up instantly. If you're the kind of person who gets drained in crowds, it's because your mind processes more than you realize. You're not just absorbing sound or movement, you're picking up emotional tones, subtle expressions, shifts in body language, degrees of tension in the air, and fragments of conversations your ears were never meant to catch. In other words, you process reality in high resolution, and high-resolution minds get exhausted faster. This explains why you might feel tired after spending time in a busy market or packed event, even if nothing stressful happened. The fatigue isn't from the place, it's from the processing. You feel like you've run an internal marathon, even though your body barely moved. But here's something even deeper. People who dislike crowded environments often have a complex relationship with attention. Not the attention they receive, the attention they give. Their attention is selective, intentional, meaningful. They don't distribute it randomly or casually. They invest it carefully, like an emotional currency. And in crowded places, that currency gets scattered. It's as if their mind is forced to give small pieces of attention to everything at once, and that fragmentation feels unnatural. Some people feel energized by external chaos. It gives them something to bounce off of, something to match. Others feel drained by it because it dilutes their internal clarity. If you're someone who feels drained, that's because your clarity matters to you more than the noise around you. There's also an emotional dimension that many people struggle to put into words. It's the quiet pressure that comes from being surrounded by many people who aren't emotionally connected to you. Humans naturally seek connection, understanding, familiarity, but crowded places rarely offer that. They offer proximity without connection, presence without intimacy, noise without meaning. For someone who values emotional resonance, that disconnect feels heavy. Being surrounded by hundreds of people yet connected to none of them can trigger a quiet, hidden sense of isolation. Not because you're alone, but because you're surrounded by people who are too busy, too distant, too wrapped in their own worlds to truly see you, or anyone. And if you've ever stood in a crowd and suddenly felt more alone than you feel in an empty room, you're experiencing one of the most overlooked psychological truths. Loneliness has very little to do with physical isolation. It has everything to do with emotional alignment. You can be alone and feel peaceful. You can be surrounded and feel unseen. This is why some people prefer quiet environments, not because they dislike others, but because they seek genuine connection over collective presence. They want conversations that mean something, moments that feel grounded, environments that don't overwhelm their emotional senses. Another overlooked aspect is this: crowded environments reduce predictability. You lose track of where your space begins and where someone else's ends. So many movements happening at once, so many shifting directions, unpredictable sounds, fragmented conversations, sudden stops, quick changes. Your mind prefers patterns, and in crowds erase patterns. It's like trying to read a page where every line moves. Your eyes don't know where to rest, so they keep scanning, searching for stability that never arrives, and that search becomes tiring. But people rarely speak about this deeper fatigue, the fatigue that comes from overstimulated awareness. Some minds are simply built to feel the world with more sensitivity, and sensitivity isn't fragility, it's depth. When someone says they dislike crowded places, what they're often trying to say is, I feel too much in these environments. Everything hits me at once. I need mental space to function well. I'm not disconnected. I'm overwhelmed by how much I can sense. And if you've ever felt this, you know it's not a choice. It's not a preference. It's a quiet emotional truth. There's also a psychological factor connected to identity. People with reflective or introspective personalities often form a sense of self based on internal states, thoughts, feelings, personal insights, rather than external social environments. When placed into a crowded environment, their sense of self becomes harder to access. It's drowned out by the noise, movement, expectations, and social pressure of being around so many people at once. In simpler words, your inner world becomes harder to hear. And because your inner world is where you navigate life from, losing access to it, even temporarily, can feel destabilizing. That destabilization doesn't look dramatic from the outside. It looks like quiet withdrawal, emotional distance, or the urge to leave early, but inside it feels like the mind losing its compass. Some people need solitude to reset that compass. Others need predictability. Others need emotional safety. Crowded environments provide none of these. But there's something else, something subtle that's rarely talked about. People who dislike crowds often have a higher awareness of social energy. They can sense tension in a room without anyone saying a word. They can feel when someone nearby is stressed, frustrated, or impatient. They can pick up the emotional atmosphere of a place simply by walking through it. And crowds are full of emotional contradictions, excitement, stress, frustration, impatience, distraction, all mixed together. When you're sensitive to emotional currents, walking through a crowd feels like walking through waves of invisible energy. None of it is directed at you, but you feel it anyway. This emotional awareness is a strength. It allows you to connect deeper, see beneath the surface, and understand people in ways others can't. But in a crowd, that strength turns into overload. Imagine having a microphone that picks up every sound in the room. Now imagine walking into a stadium. That's what emotional sensitivity feels like in crowded spaces. There's also a cognitive layer to this, something connected to concentration. People who dislike crowded places often have minds that thrive in focused environments. Their best ideas come when the world around them is quiet. Their creativity flows when they're alone. Their thinking deepens when there are no interruptions. Crowded places disrupt that focus, not in a dramatic sense, but in a subtle way that disconnects you from your natural rhythm. You might still function, still walk, still hold a conversation, but your mind isn't fully present. It's split between navigating the environment and processing it. That split creates a low-level fatigue that builds quietly until you need to retreat. And retreating isn't avoidance, it's restoration. People assume that disliking crowds means avoiding life, but in reality, it means preserving your mental clarity so that you can engage with life in a deeper, more meaningful way. What drains you isn't the presence of people, it's the absence of emotional and mental space. And here's a quiet truth most people never realize. Some minds grow louder in silence. Some hearts become clearer in stillness. Some personalities shine best in calm environments. The world often celebrates loudness, big personalities, loud voices, busy places, constant movement. But not all brilliance is loud. Some of the most insightful, emotionally intelligent people are those who prefer stillness over chaos. If crowds drain you, it's because your mind is designed to think deeply, not rapidly, to process meaningfully, not reactively, to observe quietly, not instantly engage with everything around you. Another fascinating layer is this. People who dislike crowded places tend to form attachments slowly but deeply. Their social connections are selective and meaningful. They don't enjoy surface-level interactions. They don't enjoy meaningless noise. They prefer conversations that feel like shared understanding, not random exchanges. Crowded environments offer quantity, not quality. And the mind that seeks quality doesn't thrive in that. There's also a biological component, something connected to sensory thresholds. Some people naturally have a lower threshold for sensory input. Bright lights, loud sounds, fast movements, all of these hit harder. Not painfully, but intensely. Their nervous system registers stimulation in greater detail, which means their internal processing becomes more active in environments most people barely notice. This is why someone can say, "It's just a mall," while another person feels mentally drained after walking through it. They're not reacting to the same experience. They're reacting to the same environment processed through different levels of sensitivity. And sensitivity, again, isn't weakness, it's awareness. You notice the hum of conversations, the clashing footsteps, the music coming from multiple speakers, the fluorescent lights buzzing above, people brushing past, sudden laughter, unpredictable noise, shifting movements. And your mind tries to process it all. Not because you want to, but because that's how you're wired. Another psychological layer surfaces when we talk about personal boundaries. Some people have internal boundaries that are easily overwhelmed by close proximity to strangers. It's not about fear. It's about maintaining emotional and mental balance. Crowded places collapse those boundaries, forcing your mind into a state where it must remain alert without resting. And without mental rest, even small tasks become heavy. This is why you might feel the need to step outside for fresh air, or why you breathe differently in crowds, or why you think clearer once you're out. The moment you're back in open space, the mind loosens, the body relaxes. You feel like yourself again, not because you escaped something dangerous, but because you return to your natural rhythm. One of the most misunderstood truths is this: people who dislike crowds often have a stronger relationship with authenticity. They value genuine presence, with themselves and with others. Crowded environments feel like the opposite of authenticity. Too many signals, too much noise, too many masks, too many half-present interactions. Your mind craves environments where people feel real, grounded, emotionally accessible, and crowds, by their nature, pull people away from themselves. They move through habit, urgency, distraction, but you move through meaning. This difference creates an internal tension that no one else sees but you feel deeply. There's also a philosophical dimension, the awareness of individuality within collectivity. For some people, crowds trigger a quiet reflection. Who am I in all of this? Not as an identity crisis, but as a reminder of how small each person is in the grand landscape of human movement. When you're someone who thinks deeply, that awareness can feel overwhelming. Crowds remind you of the scale of the world and the solitude within it, but they also remind you of your own inner space, the part of yourself that no crowd can touch. This awareness doesn't make you distant, it makes you introspective, and introspective minds often need distance to process the weight of that introspection. So when you step out of a crowd and finally breathe, you're not just breathing air, you're breathing space for your identity to expand again. And here's the final truth, the one most people never acknowledge. Disliking crowded places is not about withdrawing from life. It's about choosing where your energy goes. It's about protecting the mind you've spent years building. It's about honoring your sensitivity, your awareness, your emotional depth. It's about living life in a way that aligns with who you are, not who the world expects you to be. Some people thrive in noise, some thrive in stillness. Both are human, both are valid, both are needed. And if you're someone who prefers quiet spaces, peaceful environments, deeper conversations, gentler moments, you are not avoiding the world. You are simply choosing to experience it more meaningfully.